In today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast, I want to break down why Cade Cunningham and what makes Cade Cunningham so impactful for the Detroit Pistons, even when he's having an off night shooting. We'll talk about that in today's episode, Locked On Pistons podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Another great way to support the podcast. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. In today's episode, I want to talk about Cade's impact on the team and why he's felt even when he's not having a good shooting night. I want to compare. We've had a few days until the Pistons come back from All-Star break. It's a little slow right now. So let's go ahead and do the comparison. 2018-19 Blake, or this year, Cade Cunningham. We'll talk about that later. And also, Ausar Thompson says he believes he's the best perimeter defender in the NBA. Is that true? We'll talk about all that today's episode. But you guys, man, let's go ahead and clap it up. We have hit 10,000, man. We hit 10,000 subscribers. We are actually moving past 10,000 as of right now. We hit it today as I'm recording this on the 19th. I told you guys the next episode we recorded, I wanted to be able to come on here and say, we got 10,000 subscribers. And we got 10K, man. I love all you guys. I appreciate all of you guys who have supported me and love the content. And I promise you guys I got a lot more content coming for you guys. Stay tuned, man. But we're going to go even harder. We're going to work even harder. We're going to get more content out there for you guys, especially at the end of this month once I'm officially full-time with my sports media career. But I told you guys we would celebrate. We're taking some time here to celebrate reaching 10,000 subscribers, man. Just give you guys a little personal behind the curtain real quick. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and just do a toast real quick. There's a toast to you guys. What's in here? Water? Who knows? Can't really see what's in here. Let's just say it's water. It is water. Don't get me in trouble. Sorry, Nick. That was a joke. Locked On, it was a joke. There's actually nothing in here. It was a joke. There's nothing in there. Let's chill out. It was a joke. But appreciate you guys for real. Wanted to have some fun with that. But thank you guys so much, man. I seriously appreciate it. All right, so today, actually, after we hit 10,000 subscribers, which is super cool, I went over on my personal YouTube channel at Kuka Hill. I did a film breakdown, breaking down why Cade is so impactful. So you got the film. I went through the Atlanta Hawks game from February 2nd where the Pistons lost by 2. I broke down that game. So if you guys want to see film with it, go to my personal YouTube channel. You guys will see it. But I picked that game because if you go and watch that game, or if you simply just look at the box score, Cade was 8 of 23 in that game, 35% from the field. He was 1 of 6 from deep, 16% in that game. He did not have an efficient night. And if we're all going to be unbiased and we're going to be fair and just the numbers don't lie, Cade is not the most efficient player in the NBA. He's become more efficient this year. He's had a career high true shooting percentage, 55.1 true shooting percentage. So he's going towards that way. I believe that's slightly below league average efficiency, but on his type of volume, he's still towards the bottom half when it goes off of that type of volume that he has. So as an overall scorer, he is still not the most efficient guy in the NBA. And despite that, it doesn't matter. My camera's glitching because I have Basketball Reference up, and it's like it always messes up with it. I don't know why. But despite that, his impact is still incredibly felt on a play-by-play basis, on a possession-by-possession basis. And I want to break down for you guys why. And this topic actually was motivated to me, or I got motivated by it, because I forget the Twitter account. I really hate that I forgot. But someone in the Orlando Magic community did a whole really great breakdown. I retweeted it and everything. I'm really mad I'm forgetting who it was. But did a great breakdown talking about why Franz's impact is felt more on a possession-by-possession basis over Paolo. Why you have games where teams get, don't want to make this Orlando Magic episode, but I thought it was a great breakdown. So I wanted to do the same thing with the Pistons, because I thought that could be shared with the Pistons and Cade Cunningham. And basically the point that's going to be made here is that despite the fact despite when Cade is not having an efficient night, and despite the fact that Cade is not the most efficient player in the NBA, the way in which he plays and the rest of his skills make it to where his impact will still be felt every single possession. Let's bring up this first number that really has a big reason to it. Cade is third in the NBA in total drives per game. The only players ahead of him, SGA and Jalen Brunson. He's ahead of names like Zion, Trae Young, John Morant, LaMelo. I mean, there's only two players ahead of him, so you get everyone else is going to be behind him. Drives per game. Again, yes, that even includes James Harden, Luka Doncic, Darius Garland, Anthony Edwards. All these guys. Cade's ahead of them on drives per game. That's one. The other thing, that I wanted to touch on is how much Cade touches the ball compared to everyone else. Touches per game, he's fourth in the NBA. 93.6 to Trae. Second place, Tyrese at 93.8. Then obviously Jokic at the very top, 104.8. If you go to total touches this season, there's only the same three players, the only ones who have more touches than Cade on the season. But if you look at points per touch, Cade is ahead of Trae, who's ahead of him in total touches. He's ahead of Tyrese, who's ahead of him in total touches. And he's right behind Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic has .284 points per touch. Cade has .276. Now, this isn't to say that he still is making the most out of every single touch. He can still get even more efficient, obviously, and you want him to get more efficient. But the point is that the way in which he plays makes it where each time he touches the basketball, it's being felt in a positive way. And why is that? Now we can get into more of the eye test and the film breakdown of it. When you watch the Pistons games, Cade's gravity is being felt every single possession. He's getting two on ball. Almost every single time he runs a pick and roll, he is getting two on ball, and he's allowing his offense, his teammates, to consistently play 4-on-3 on the backside. Consistently. I would have to say over 70% of the time, the team, when he runs pick and roll, they're operating on a 4-on-3 situation on the backside. Consistently. And this is felt, again, even if he's himself is not scoring well, he's putting his team offensively in a position where they will be able to have a good night offensively because they are playing against, obviously, a one-man-less defense. They're going against a rotating defense. They're going against a weaker defense because Cade's occupying two players. There's multiple plays that I broke down in this film where Cade doesn't even get the assist. There'll be times where Cade, one play in specifically, they like to use ghost screens a lot with THJ and Malik Beasley. And oftentimes what happens is they want to send two to the ball, but once THJ or Malik Beasley slip that ghost screen and flare out to the opposite wing, Cade then throws it to them. Now they get an open shot because of the two men get put on Cade's off of Cade's screen. Now even in the play that I broke down in the film breakdown, he throws it over to THJ off of, after getting double team. THJ then has someone rotating from the block to him, and now that gives Tobias Harris a wide open layup. THJ gets that assist, but that's all stemming from Cade's gravity. That's all stemming from Cade being able to create easy offense for his team. Now, obviously, I'm just paying attention to the offensive end right now. Cade and his size, versatility, and his defense, that plays a big part in why he's able to be as effective as he is and as impactful as he is, despite not being one of the most uber-efficient players in the NBA. The other part of it, offensively, is that he's one of the best passers in the NBA. He's one of the best processors in the NBA, and he understands the game at an elite level. He understands that me simply being aggressive, I hate to go back to the comparison about Paolo versus Franz, but if you watch players like Apollo that he gets compared to, you look at his synergy chart and you look at what he's compared to, like a Brandon Ingram, or you look at, like a KD or anything. KD gets away with it because he's one of the best shooters we've ever seen. But guys who aren't constantly trying to get to the rim, guys who aren't constantly driving and trying to get the defense in rotation and constantly absorb this kind of defensive attention and force the defense to rotate, if you are not having a good night shooting-wise, your impact is just not felt. And if you're taking inefficient shots as well with it, your impact is not going to be felt at the same level, possession by possession. And when you don't have a good shooting night, you'll flatly just be negatively impactful. Like, that's what will happen. And you've seen those type of players for the Pistons last few years. Over the last 10 years, really. I won't say any names. I don't want to pick on anybody. But Cade, because he drives to the rim so much, again, third in the NBA in total drives, third in the NBA in drives per game, because he's constantly getting to the paint, because he's constantly driving and putting stress on the defense, because he's able to then react and make the right play, make the right pass out of this stress that he's consistently putting on the defense. Because of this constant paint touch that he's doing, because of these constant drives, because of the attention that he gets, because of the level of attention he gets off ball screens, all of that combined into how he's been able to become one of the best passers in the NBA, one of the best playmakers in the NBA. He's been able to create a great or generate great offense for a Malik Beasley, for a THJ. Jalen Duren has been great, but he's been spoon-fed. I mean, and this is not a bad thing, but he's being spoon-fed easy looks from Cade because you have big men. You'll see in one of the clips in the film breakdown, big men are meeting Cade on his drives at the dotted line, and that's leaving wide open dump-offs or lobs to Jalen Duren. Cade's also become one of the best half-court lob passers in the entire NBA. So I say all that to say this. Cade, this is nowhere near trying to say, and don't get this construed at all, because I'm definitely not saying this. You guys know how I am with this. I am nowhere near trying to say Cade doesn't need to become more efficient. He 100% has to become more efficient. He 100% has to be more effective at the rim, finishing-wise, and he has to be more consistent as a three-point shooter. 100%. Not giving him that pass at all. What I am saying is that despite that he's not the most uber-efficient guy right now in the NBA still, he is still considered one of the best players in the NBA, and he's going to be considered for all NBA third team this year because of his overall impact on the game of basketball. Even when he's not having a good scoring night or efficiently scoring-wise, he's still able to impact the game at a high level in a multitude of ways, and not many players can say they do that. The players that say the ones that are able to actually say they can do that are the top 10. 15, 20 players in the entire NBA. Cade's one of those guys, and this should really give Pistons fans even more excitement about Cade's future because he's having this level of impact while not being the most efficient guy in the NBA yet. He's going to continue to get better. He's going to continue to get more efficient. And as he gets more efficient, it's going to be, I don't know where the ceiling is for him, but this is where he's at already for this team. The final number I read off to you guys is this. When Cade's on the floor this year, the Pistons have a 114.4 offensive rating. When he's off, they have a 105.7 offensive rating. That's an 8.7 point differential. The offense just sinks without him. And this is with him only having a 55.1 true shooting percentage. It's because of how he spoon feeds his teammates. And obviously give credit to Trajan Langdon for getting spacing, getting guys who actually can take advantage of that gravity. That is true. They have players now that can take advantage of it, but he's creating it. He's generating it. And you're seeing why Cade was drafted first overall, why he's your franchise player, and why he's become one of the best players in the NBA this year, and why the ceiling in the future is off the charts. Is absolutely off the charts. By the way, that offensive rating would be a top 10 offense. That's a top 10 offense when he's on the floor with him not having like an all-star teammate, and he himself not being uber efficient. That's only going to get better. But let me know in the comment section down below. We went long for that segment. Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Cougar Hill how you guys feel about Cade's overall impact and where you think he's at right now in regards to the NBA. Now, how much higher he can get as he gets more efficient. Let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Cougar Hill. When we come back, we'll go ahead and do the comparison. We have a few days to rest before the next Piston game. 18-19 Blake or 24-25 Cade Cunningham. We'll talk about that coming up. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, I often do that, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I've told you guys this many a times. I've been using FanDuel for years now. It's super fun to use, super self-explanatory, super easy to use, but most importantly, obviously, it's super fun to use. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Personal YouTube channel at Cougar Hill. Hit the subscribe button over there. Also, go to the link down below in the descriptions if you want to join the playback room and watch Pistons games with me and the rest of the Pistons fan base. It's a lot of fun. I'll link it down below. All right, so we got a few days until All-Star break is officially over. The Pistons have yet to play. Obviously, have yet to come back. So there's not a lot to talk about. We've talked about just about everything. So now we're gonna get a little creative. And I thought of this topic because I was on my personal YouTube channel and I saw the video I made about Blake Griffin back in 2019. And I was like, you know what? There has been a little bit of chatter about who is better, Cade Cunningham this year or 2018-2019 Blake Griffin. And I think most of you guys who have listened to the podcast or listen to the podcast currently know that Blake Griffin is my favorite Piston of all time. Now, again, people get mad at that for some reason. People get mad about what other people's favorite player is. I don't get that. But people get mad at me for that because they're like, oh, Chauncey, rip, blah, blah, blah. I'll say it for probably the 1,000,000th time. I was too young to really absorb those teams. Like, I still have fond memories of them. I do. But I didn't go through full seasons of ups and downs and remember specific moments throughout a regular season like I do with every team since, like, 2010, like 2009. I was too young. I was, like, 6 years old, okay? So, obviously, like, these are the teams I grew up on. So, and of the 2010s, Blake's my favorite player. So, he gave us the best season, is what it is. I think everyone knows that my second favorite player would then be like Cade. Like, Cade is right there. Like, I love watching Cade. I've been a big fan of Cade's since they drafted him. I was a big fan of his before they drafted him. I've believed in him as the franchise guy since they drafted him. Like, everyone knows that I'm very, very high on Cade Cunningham. So those two guys would probably be the two players that I've watched over the last 15 years of me being able to remember seasons and games and the ride throughout seasons, like all that, being able to experience it for real and understand what I'm watching. It's Cade and Blake at the top of the list for me. All right. So there's going to be a tough comparison, but let's go ahead and get it started. So, how I want to do this, I'm going to go, I want to take turns going through what's in one player's favor and what's in another player's favor. So I think let's start with Cade. What's in Cade's favor of this argument? I think by far, and I don't think there's any other argument that nearly comes close to as, like, impactful or as, what's the word I'm looking for? Convincing. As convincing as this one, their record. The Pistons in 2018-2019 did pick up, like, after the All-Star break, but at this point in the season where the Pistons are right now, they were not this good. And they finished the season 41-41, and they finished 8th in the East. So their record, Blake had a crazy year, but the Pistons team fell off towards the end of the year. Blake got hurt, and the team just didn't. They made the playoffs as the 8th seed and got swept. So Cade has that in his favor. This team won 14 games last year. They were the worst team in franchise history, and within 1 year, Cade has helped flip this team completely around. They are 3 games over 500 right now. 3 games over 500. They're 1 game behind the 5th seed. They're 2 games behind the 4th seed. They're riding a 4-game win streak at this point in the season. They're projected to go above 41 wins. And they're projected, I would say, at least I'm going to project them, to finish higher than 8th in the East this year. I think they'll finish higher than 8th. So I think that the record and the context around the record, the context of, like, the team that Blake joined, it wasn't good. Like, it wasn't great, okay? Don't get confused. But it wasn't bottom of the league bad. Like, the Pistons were right outside the playoffs kind of bad. Dealt with injuries to key players at that time. And then he obviously just took them to, like, the next level of their playoff contention. Cade, this team last year, 14 wins, man. Worst team in franchise history. And all it took was one offseason, one season of a difference, And now the Pistons are sitting here at 29 and 26, and they're probably going to finish above the 8th seed. That is by far Cade's biggest argument for his, for him above Blake. I think that's by far the biggest argument. Now, if you go in Blake's direction, what's in Blake's argument for his season being better than Cade's current season? Blake was that year. Now, I understand that some Pistons fans hold a grudge against Blake, so they try to rewrite history on what was going on that year. There was no question about at that time, Blake was a 100% certified All-NBA member. It was about which All-NBA team he would be on. It was just about, was he going to be All-NBA second, was he going to be All-NBA third? There was no argument about whether he would actually be an All-NBA guy. It was clear that it was accepted by a majority of the public that year Blake was a top 10 to top 15 player in the NBA. It wasn't about was he going to make the All-NBA. It was he is going to be All-NBA. Now it's just about will he be the second or third team guy. And I don't think that's the conversation around Cade right now. I think the conversation around Cade right now is, will he make an All-NBA team? Will he make the third team? I think that's what the conversation is around him. Now, the rest of the year, we're talking about it at this point. If the rest of the year the Pistons end up in the 5th seed, 4th seed, Cade might end up making the second team All-NBA, and this won't be a conversation at that point. It won't be. But as of right now, where they're at, there was no discussion about whether Blake was going to be an All-NBA guy. Blake was, again, like I said, accepted as a legit top 10 to top 15 guy in the league that year. It was a fantastic season. So I think Blake has the individual argument in that regard. I think Cade's impact on the team's success is more in his regard. You want to go another further with this argument? I think that in Blake's favor, we just got done talking about, Blake was much more efficient than Cade. Blake had a 58.1 true shooting percentage. He also was relied upon for a ton of the Pistons offense. We all know how Blake broke down at the end of the year because of how much usage he had with that team, how much was being asked of him for that team. So they both had similar responsibilities. I think this season of Cade, I do think Cade has slightly more responsibility. I think he's touching the ball slightly more. I think he's being relied upon slightly more than Blake. When you just look at the raw numbers of how many touches and the usage percentage, Cade is at 32. Blake was at 29. So I think Cade is being relied upon slightly more in that regard. But Blake was just more efficient in his season, and I think that matters. Being more efficient as a scorer, that does matter. I think Cade was the better playmaker. I think he is the better playmaker this year. But Blake being a 5.4 assist guy as a power forward, a point forward, a point power forward type that he was, is pretty damn impressive. Look, these guys both, I think, are clearly, I think Blake and Cade, by far, I don't think there's any argument. I don't think anyone would make this argument, have been the most talented Pistons to wear the jersey since the going to work team. And there's probably some arguments to be made. I'm not going to make it right now, but there's probably some arguments to be made that either one of them might be simply more talent than some of the guys on that team. But both of them I hold in incredibly high regard as players, and I think both of their seasons are going to be remembered for a long. Blake's season still gets talked about to now. It's memorable, and Cade's season this year will be memorable for the next 20 years because of what happened before. So neither one of these guys, picking either one is not a bad, it's not a bad choice, and it's not disrespectful to either guy. I want to make that clear. The final touch for me though that swung it, I'm going to go with Blake. I think Blake was better in his 18-19 season. I think Cade will become better, as soon as next year probably. But I went with Blake for this. Blake was shooting, again, this is a point forward. Blake was shooting 7 threes a game. He was shooting 7 threes a game as a power forward, a point power forward guy, and shot 36% on them. And a lot of them were coming on pull-ups. We were seeing step backs, yin-yang, crossover, back. He was doing a lot of crazy stuff off the dribble. Like, one of my favorite moves was his little fake DHO when he'd go between the legs and then step back into a three. Like, he was doing some crazy shots off the dribble from beyond the arc. And he was shooting 36% on incredibly high volume, 7 attempts a game. Cade right now is at 6.3 attempts and shooting 35%. Blake was the better shooter that year. Blake was the better shooter. I think he was the better finisher. He was the more efficient scorer. Cade's a better playmaker, and he has more team wins. But I think as of right now, I think that 18-19 season from Blake is still better than Cade's right now. But like I said, if Cade gets the team to the 4th seed, to the 5th seed by the end of this year, he's going to be, I think, at that point, a no-doubt All-NBA guy. And then I think you really could make the argument that Cade's having a better season. I don't think that's the case right now. I think that will probably happen next year. Like, I won't doubt that at all. I think next year he'll be a top 15 player in the NBA, bar none. But right now, this season, I think I would still give the edge to Blake Griffin. But let me know in the comment section down below. I know that probably frustrated and got a lot of people up in arms. So go ahead and let me know how much you guys disagree with that one. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at KukuHill. When we come back, is Ausar Thompson the best perimeter defender in the entire NBA? We'll talk about that coming up. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. All right, so Ausar was interviewed this past week, and he was asked about where he thinks of himself as a defender. And to summarize the article and summarize the interview, Ausar said he believes he is the best perimeter defender in the entire NBA. Now, do I believe that is the case? That's what we're going to break down here. I think Ausar is certainly in the conversation as one of the better defenders in the NBA already. I think he was already in that kind of discussion last year as a rookie, which is just like shocking because, I mean, I've said this over and over before, but rookies are not expected to be great defensively. I feel like from a lot of players that I've heard speak about it, I've talked to a few trainers, I've talked to coaches, I've talked to some people about this kind of topic over the years, and a lot of times I've heard that defense is a larger learning curve than offense. It takes players longer to learn defensively the NBA defense than it does the NBA offense. And so that's one of the big reasons why defense is usually, you don't expect rookies to instantly be impactful as defenders. And Ausar was that his rookie year. Already, you saw how impactful he was. But this year, is he the best perimeter defender in the NBA? I'm going to say, as I think you guys know, probably Ausar Thompson's biggest believer. I was his biggest believer, I think, pre-draft. I've been his biggest believer since then. I think saying he's the best perimeter defender right now I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit. And there's two main reasons why. The first reason is he was not himself for the first month of this season. Of his season. For the first month of December. Heck, if you want to be really honest, until midway January, I don't think he was really himself. And if you want me to be even more honest, I still don't think he's completely himself right now. But he wasn't really looking like, Ausar until midway through last month. And that is fine. No one's holding that against him because of everything he went through in the offseason. And all he went through with the health condition, the blood clots. And everyone gets why. But if we're going to say if you're the best perimeter defender, that's, I think, is going to be, and rightfully so, it's fair to hold that against him, that for a good chunk of the season, he was not that. That's one. The second argument that I have, or the argument I think people would make, is that he's not playing a lot of minutes because his stamina won't allow it right now. He hasn't crossed 30 minutes. He still has that 30-minute barrier right now. Now, I'm interested to see, after the All-Star break, if that gets lifted. If he starts to play now 30-plus minutes, because that would be huge for them. But for someone that's only playing 25 or less minutes, it's hard to say that someone that doesn't play more than 30 minutes is having that same level of impact as a perimeter defender as someone else who is playing 30, 35-plus minutes. Like something like that. So I think those are fair arguments. And along with that, the fact that he's capped at like 30 minutes, the other side of that argument also is the fact that, okay, you don't have good enough stamina right now to have that kind of level of impact possession to possession to possession like he did his rookie year. He doesn't have that 99 stamina as of right now, which is one of his biggest, attributes as a defender, is that he's never tired and he's able to be all over the place. I wouldn't say he's at that point yet. So I think those arguments are fair to be made against him for being the best perimeter defender right now. With that said, I think when he does get to 99 stamina again, I keep using these 2K ratings. Some of you guys who've never played 2K are probably like, why does he keep saying 99 stamina? Once he gets to 99 stamina and he's able to play 30-plus minutes, I 100% think he will be in that conversation as one of the, if not the best perimeter defender in the NBA. And an argument I'm sure Ausar would make, and I'm sure some of you guys may make, and heck, I'm not going to lie to you. If someone started bad talking Ausar and started acting like he wasn't in the conversation for this kind of impact, I probably would then, put some biased, I don't have glasses around me, but I put my biased shades on, and all of a sudden I'd start reading these numbers off. I'd say, well, you know what? When Ausar Thompson actually is on the floor, the Pistons have a 107.7 defensive rating. And when he's off the floor, they have a 112.5. When he's on the floor, they have like the best defense in the NBA. And that's with him not being at 99 stamina. So how can you say that he's not? Like, that's an argument I'm sure he would make. And like I said, I'd probably make that argument to someone else who starts disrespecting him if you want to keep it a buck. But even if you want to go since January, like, the team in the month of January had the third best defense in the NBA. Like, that was 100% largely due to Ausar Thompson. That was after they had one of the worst defensive months in December. They were like bottom 5 defense in December. And then if you go since January all the way to now, they have the 7th best defense in the NBA. That, again, is in large part due to Ausar Thompson starting and playing more minutes. So there's an argument to be made that he's still, even without being at peak stamina, without being at peak shape, without needing to play 30 minutes plus, that he still is in that regard, that he still should be considered in that top tier defender. I wouldn't say he's the best because I think those are fair critiques. But I'm telling you right now, if he comes out of All-Star break and he's playing 30-plus minutes and the restrictions off, and I see him running all over the place again without getting tired, he's able to be everywhere it seems like at once defensively again, yeah, he's going to be, like, I think Ausar is going to be an 8-time defensive member, like an 8-time all-defensive member. It's like, that's how good he is. He's going to be considered one of the best defenders in the NBA for a long time, I think. Once people start to notice him and start taking, and I think more people are starting to take notice of him, but I think he's going to be held in that regard. I wouldn't say it right now, just to be fair for the rest of the NBA, but he plays 30-plus minutes the rest of the year. It may be, actually, he's probably not going to hit 65 games, is he? I don't have the numbers right in front of me. I don't want to make my camera freeze again. So I don't think he's going to hit 65 games this year. So, but next year, like, I think he will be regarded as one of the best perimeter defenders, if not the best one. And the final 2 months of the season, he might be, if he gets 30-plus minutes a night. But we'll have to see if that happens. Let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at KukaHill. Do you guys think Ausar Thompson is already, despite not being at 99 stamina and all that stuff, do you think he is already still the best perimeter defender in the entire NBA? Let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at KukaHill. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for helping us reach 10,000 subscribers, man. Look, cheers again. Cheers. Real talk, I remember coming out of high school in 2016, graduating high school, and starting up my own YouTube, and saying to myself, I wanted to get to 10,000 subscribers. Now, I know, too, a lot of people, even bigger YouTubers than me, obviously, are looking at 10K like, man, I surpassed that a long time ago. But for me, coming out of high school, 10,000 was like my goal. And, I stopped using that YouTube for a while. I ended up going doing different stuff, writing and all that stuff. But that's always been a goal of mine. And for me to be able to reach it with Locked On Pistons and to see this community that we've built together and see the support that you guys have for the content I bring to you guys and my coverage of the team and how much fun we have and how much you guys enjoy everything. I truly appreciate you guys so much, and it's it is a huge deal to me, because it was like, if I told 18-year-old Ku that he actually ended up doing it with his own show, like, he would have been, ecstatic. He would have been super proud. So I appreciate you guys so much for supporting me and helping us get to 10,000K or 10,000 subscribers. Now we're on to 10 or 20,000. Let's try to get there, see how long it takes us to get there. But I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you guys so much again. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. Until next time, peace out, everybody.